Hello and welcome to My Body, My Power podcast, where we shine our light, claim our worth, and empower the next generation. I'm your host, Kristen Rubis, a heart-led entrepreneur, mentor, and the creator behind the My Body, My Power movement. Here, we uncover authenticity, celebrate self-expression, and create a life and career that lights up the world. Welcome, Goddess. Let's dive in. Hello, friends. Welcome to My Body, My Power podcast. I'm your host, Kristen Rubis, and I'm super grateful to be sharing a conversation today with Ria Kaelin. Welcome, Ria, to the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are in this beautiful world?
Hi, Kristen. Thanks for having me today. It's great to be here. Well, my journey started then from, I guess you would say, an orthodox or traditional path. I definitely am a rule breaker and somebody who is often called a bad influence. But that's only because I believe in myself in a different way that I've seen other women do, which is just to do what you believe in and to not take no for an answer. So some of my untraditional upbringing was that I was raised in I guess it's the best way to say it is like a punk rock kind of community, really well versed in music and art and creativity in the mid 80s in Phoenix, Arizona. And so this was really a path that kind of spearheaded my foundation. So that was something that as I became like a fifth grader that I realized was something very different. But I was raised in a family that was unique, not like any other. And I came out of seeing a lot of devastation of things that I didn't understand at the time. I knew what loss looked like. AIDS was rampant in our community, and the music industry and early queer life that was being expressed. And then to see how people either had support in the medical community or didn't. And those were some early foundational pieces that I think really inspired me in a way of being a young person to help me get where I am today, which is applying for medical school. So,
Wow.
Fast forward so many years looking back, it's like, wow, a horrible thing watching my community have AIDS, disease, peace, love, dove go wrong in ways, I guess you could say, in communities that were actually having outbreaks. So that was hard, to like look back and be like, oh, my uncle had to move to San Francisco because he needed treatment, not because he wanted to move to a very expensive city to live. But it meant that it was longer life for him and an opportunity for us to know each other longer. A lot of people didn't have that opportunity. They were either misled, misguided, didn't have access. And really those inequities of lack of access were back to that foundational role for me. So as I grew up, just not, if somebody told me, no, we can't do that, it was like, well, can I find another way? Can I find a path that helps me to get there that is comfortable for myself, even if it's not comfortable for everybody else? So continued to challenge my parents as a young person. I loved school, so that was easy for them and easy for me, but I became a swimmer very early on, and I had athletics to kind of anchor me to stay in school and to have a drive to do something. And so I have a natural competitive spirit about myself. I'm always happy to have a race or be competitive in a way that's about your individuality, because being a swimmer, you're on a team, but you're really racing against your own best time or your own clock. How can you perform better? And it's really a self-motivated sport, even though you swim together and you practice together. It's another one of those kind of punk rock things that came back around in my life, that swimming is also very punk, because you're very much like, I'm not going in the same flow as everybody else is. And so you're always swimming against the grain in the water. You're always pressing up against something that is challenging, whether it's learning to hold your breath longer or become stronger when you're a very small human. So,
wow. Empowering sounds like.
Yeah. So some of those moments, led to just continuing to build that foundation of going forward and being a better version of what I might be able to become in this world. Some of my community was always telling me, like in the background, when you're a young person, either like go for it or this world's great. And, I was raised more with like the wool pulled way back off your eyes and more eyes very wide open, hands on. They didn't hide too much from us as children about what was going to happen in the world I would live in. So being raised in a community that was very open with sharing, whether it was something good happening or something really tragic, whether it was political, whether it was a health crisis. I grew up being one of the last states in America to bring on the awareness and the recognition of Martin Luther King Day. And not because it's something we should all recognize, but something we chose as a state to recognize because we wanted to have the Super Bowl. So another example of, people can create movement, which is inspiring. But I wasn't so excited that the only reason we are now observing this was because we wanted a massive sporting event. Like, why didn't we observe it before? So I played hooky and left school. I was in 8th grade and grabbed my best friend, and we went into the march where we marched from a church and we marched down to the Capitol in Phoenix. So, it was more fun to stand with the people and be proud of what was happening than to be a upset and angry young person about why it was happening. So some of those lessons too about like you can have a mindset shift, and when you're open to allowing your mindset be welcoming of new ways of looking at something, can be really, really helpful and a great lesson to fall back on in this life, because nothing's permanent. Everything changes. And those are the things that can really be some amazing foundational blocks, no matter where you are in this life. From being a teenager to moving forward in my life, I was not only blessed with getting to have an education and live in America, which I always found to be extremely grateful. Had the opportunity to become a model, which was great because it allowed me to have money as a young person. I didn't have to depend on my parents. It created an independence for myself that I had to still work really hard for. And I learned hard work by having to go and work in a world that was an adult world as a child. I was about 13 when that happened for me. So I was young. Modeling, getting to be a young person in an adult's world was an unusual circumstance, but it was something that felt really natural for me. And I didn't fear it in any kind of way, or it didn't create angst that I saw in some of the other young people who were in the same industry. So it was something that I was lucky to be in a good modeling agency who took care of me and knew that my voice mattered. So if I was not wanting to do something, they listened to that. And as I grew older and I stayed in the industry for several years, and I got the opportunity when I was 17 to go live abroad and do this as a real career change and something that just felt really very punk rock, very avant-garde, very much exciting. And I could have stayed in school as an honor student. I could have gotten a scholarship potentially to go to college. I was very ambitious. So I decided just one day I woke up and was like, I'm going. And after some talks with my mentors, like my swim coach and my language arts teachers in school, the thing they told me, it still rings true today, that opportunities don't always happen for us, but when they do, knowing that it's the right time to take that chance is really important to listen to. And there's like a gut response of like, it's so unnerving, it keeps you up at night, or it's the constant thought that's running through your head, because those are the moments that we need to take those times to think about and digest it, almost like eat it up and let it sit in our stomach and kind of like really feel what is that like if I didn't take the opportunity or if I did. And I thought it was great that one of my favorite teachers told me like, hey, school's always going to be there. So for me, that was like a green light. I'm going to Europe. And I did just that. It took a lot of effort. I had to leave school. I had to work more. I had to pay for my own plane tickets. I had to pay for housing. I had to prepare that I was going to like not just leave your parents' house, but leave the whole country. And off to Greece I went.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
17. And some young people, I mean, I've heard stories of some young people who get scholarships and go to places and never tell their parents just because they have drive. And I find the same drive like that in myself, where it's just like, I'm going to do it and I don't care what happens, you know, because it's going to get me somewhere, whether it's an experience or the idea that the moment will fulfill your soul and your heart that you did it. And we don't look back and say, oh, I missed that moment. So when we can take those moments, I always recommend people to do it because you never know if it's going to circle back. That impermanence moment happens right in those decisions. Like, oh, well, just let it go because most of the time, I think most things work out. I mean, there's always things to consider. Being safe is the most important one. I felt very safe in that decision. And so I think that was one of the things that I was like, I could always come home. And I prepared for some of those moments. And I'm glad I got to stay a year and enjoy working really hard, learning halfway a foreign language on the fly. And yeah, it just taught me so much. Just that also when people tell you no, it's not in being told no, that's the hard part. It's knowing that that opportunity is not going to happen and to really trust that something else better or what is more fitting for you is right around the corner. So as a model, I learned some of that. I didn't have a pretty sensitive person naturally. Learning to be told no was okay. And it was a lesson. And I was in an industry where you're told no all the time, daily. Like, no, you don't fit this role. No, you don't fit these pants. No, you don't fit this shoe. No, you don't fit this, whatever it was. So it was really exciting when you were told yes, right? Because you're told 20 times no, and then you get the one yes, and you're like, wow. That's so awesome. And, you know, it is a dog eat dog world in that industry. I don't recommend it today. I look back and kind of wonder, like, think I must have been slightly off my rocker and just too driven or too ambitious, you know, but that was me. And if my kids wanted to do that today, I would have to have some deeper conversations with them. It's also a different world than in the 90s compared to today. So all those things to be considered, even as I share this story, you know, it's like today I would make some very different choices. So I say that considering where we're at too in this moment.
And then after modeling.
Oh, yes. Modeling. When I came home to America, I was just ready to be done. I didn't want to just have that. I knew that with my education and where I was going before all that happened for me was still a burning passion inside of me. So I think I'm just one of those lifelong student learners naturally. So the idea to go back to school and to do more just kind of lit up when I found myself living in Salt Lake City, Utah, and had an opportunity to become a nurse. And I was just super excited about that. And thought I was like, oh, I was going to launch my medical career, getting to help where help is needed most. We don't have enough nurses anywhere in the world. And nurses do some of the most amazing work in medicine, in my opinion. Doctors are awesome and I love them. But I've seen what nursing does in this country, and it's impressive. So yay for nurses. That didn't happen. I had something else happen. I had a shift in consciousness that happened on my way to become a nurse, literally on my way to sign papers to finalize my education, like all the documents in your advisor's office as you enter college. And I don't know why I was, but it was a different calling to be a massage therapist. And it was something that literally stopped me in my tracks. I flipped my car around from where I was heading and I drove to the massage school, and I ended up signing up there instead of at the University of Utah. So, and I remember sitting there and was like, what am I doing here? Why am I here? And I just remember like, I almost felt like I didn't have a decision in it. And so I just had to trust that whatever and why I was there was the right thing. And that was really hard because I was still very much debating like, oh, but I want to learn chemistry. Oh, but I want to know how to, and I want to know, and I want to know. And that's still a soundtrack that happens in my head. So
Nice.
I just learned then that it was my passion that overrules a lot of my consciousness. And it's because I am so curious of a being that I just need to know these things sometimes. and through that also like, have that be what I do in this world. So they're intermixed, and I find that to be really lucky because a lot of people sometimes really struggle to find out what they want to do. We're here a short amount of time, so there's only so many times we go to school. There's only so many times we go to Europe. There's only so many times we're just like, I'm going to do this crazy thing, and hopefully we turn around and we learn something magnificent from it. So there I was in massage school, and it was the greatest thing that could have happened because I got to answer so many whys and what ifs, and then being in a very held and talk about safe space, like when you have to take your clothes off and trust your teachers and trust your classmates, that it's not just learning chemistry out of a book sitting in a class, or not blowing up the lab, or not doing other things students do in other kind of schooling. This was taking on the whole spirit and person and a wholeness with humans that just became, well, a giant part of me for a very long time. But it was back to more foundational learning again. And I found that to just be something there. I was thriving and eating all of it up, and I loved all of it. And I learned quickly I didn't like spa work. I did not like doing spa work in the massage world. But I enjoy receiving it. I don't enjoy being the person doing all the mud wraps or the salt scrubs or chair massage. It is a lot. And I loved it that I saw my classmates who did love it go on and open spas and really knock it out of the park. So I found my passion in more of structural integration, in session work with people. In my schooling, I was able to choose my track. So I had Rolfers who were trained from Ida Rolf at the institution I was at. So they were able to morph their Ida's training and teach it to us in more of a structural integration. So name and trademark mean a big thing to people. And since you're not trained at the Rolf Institute, you're not a Rolfer. You can be a structural integrationist, but names mean a lot. So I thought it was great that I had these fresh and young instructors who were finding their passion and wanting to teach students. So I really enjoyed those people, and they were so giving of their information and the knowledge that was one step away from somebody I adored and is one of my massage heroes. So just was like, wow, how amazing. And I thought, wow, is that why I turned my car around that day, was to meet these people? Or still trying to answer my own, like, how did I end up here? So it gave me this awesome platform to just continue to learn. And at a self pace, I ended up having a young family and getting married, and then moving to the great state of Washington and to Olympia to also allow my husband's inspiration, which was to grow mushrooms for people. So we moved here with our little family, and he got to flourish growing mushrooms. And I opened up, what used to be called the phone book, which I don't think they exist anymore, and opened up massage therapy in Olympia's phone book, and just started crying and was like, moved to the wrong town because it was saturated here. It was completely young. There's 40 pages of massage therapist advertisement. And I thought, how am I going to compete with that? I moved to a small town, smaller than where I was from. And just had to do this thing of digging deep, which that motto I had no idea would come full circle a little later in my story. And that's what I did. I just decided to dig deeper into our community, and I found a place that hired me as a brand new person from out of state. And yeah, it was intimidating and challenging all at the same time. And when you don't have a mentor coming into an industry that is professional, it does feel a little rocky for people. Even if you're headstrong, solid. I had lived in another country. I had been a state winning swimmer, had all this strength and ambition, but still moving into my young professional life had some horror behind it. What if I failed? What if I couldn't do it? What if I didn't perform? And not just self-doubt, but really self-awareness of what I was to be, which was therapist. And you're taken a little more seriously. You're not the person who's probably out in town. Some ideal of when we set ourselves apart as a professional really started to become molded inside of me during this time. I wasn't just a young therapist who was here to just do massage and live in my community and go out. And I really wanted to be taken seriously as a professional. And because my training was in foundational structural work, I didn't want to have crossover lines. So I just wanted to be taken seriously as somebody medical from the very beginning. And that was something that happened probably from all of my background that followed me to the future of here's a platform where I can feel empowered and give that to my clients of holding expression in our body as they tell a story, that there's somebody there to be a mentor to their body and to guide them and to help them through when you want to gain new posture or live in better poise in ourself. A lot of things happen and unwinding. And so that was something that I didn't know it happened within me. It just happened. Yet another one of those things when I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's that moment in my life where 20 years in the past, I can look back and be like, oh, that's when it happened as well. I think those are special times to look back on, because from gaining some confidence and feeling that my community was receptive of my work was super cool. And I walked into a community that was flourishing in massage, and then I got to lift it up even, which it was just unbelievable. And it was so neat to be brought in and taken seriously. And I got to work with physical therapists. I got to work with doctors. I got to work with surgeons. I had surgeons tried to hire me out of my practice because I couldn't believe that somebody who could just look at someone's knee or their foot or their ankle and help them see how they can be a better surgeon. It was just so cool. Wow. So those networked things that happened for me were some of the reason my car turned around that day. Was oh, you can medically help other ways. And I just feel that the massage industry was such a wonderful and beautiful place to grow and raise my family, get to be a balance between a mom and a wife. My husband launched his mushroom farm through that with the help of some clients I had too. I ended up becoming really well closely knit into the farming industry because I received a bunch of clients who were farmers. And they brought me into the world of what does organic food look like in a community, and how is health also shared, not just through body work or mind and spirit connection, but how our food really brings us back to the land and to so much of our beginning nutrition. So I got to help farmers feel better in their bodies, perform better, and help them heal, and got to learn a relationship with how to receive food closer to home, and raise my kid on organic food, get to still eat organic food because I still live in Olympia. So that's such an awesome thing to share still here, and watch my husband's business grow. All while getting to empower myself, be educated, feel that I have a community that it felt great to be in. I do hide a lot in my community because I did make that boundary for myself a little early. So it is fun when I do go out to see people. I'm now retired from being a massage therapist. So now I do go out and I see a lot more of my clients, and it's just a whole other level. Still being seen, which is important when we shift our careers to have people witness you and not just walk by you like, oh, I don't know that person. Even though I'm like, yeah, I used to take care of you for like 15 years. So a lot of my clients, when I was a massage therapist, often looked to me as their primary care person. So that was great. I became a nutritional health coach. I took every training I could that pressed up against me needing another license. So I took my massage training as far as I could to almost become a physical therapist. Or I took it as far as I could to where I would need an osteopathic medical degree to do the next set of manipulations. Or my nutritional training to where I could be a functional medical doctor. And all of those as moments as I pressed up against my own license and building my practice. For 17 years, I was in practice. So when it came to nearing the end of my practice, I had some experiences in my life with friends and community members that shifted my whole life. And I found myself in that moment of wanting to flip my car around, even though I was really happy with what I did and where I was at in my career. And so I did. I flipped my car around. I went back to school. I got a dual degree. I learned all that chemistry I wanted to learn and biochemistry, and got to experience COVID with all of the other young people, what it felt like to be in higher education, and then pressed into online learning, and had high schooler at home still. So it was felt very shared stress when it came to still connecting to a younger population, because I chose to end my career and to go back to school to become a doctor. And I'm super excited about that day to get into program, which is around the corner, hopefully. So all of those lessons from the wild time of being raised as a kid with punk rock and seeing AIDS take somebody down because they can't access something, to being a young swimmer who made it somewhere, to not being able to access something because my family couldn't afford it. We're all barriers that for somehow my mental outlook, and I think I'm potentially born with it, through all the psychological evaluation I've had of myself. Some people are lucky. Some people are just extremely lucky to be born into a place where you're ridiculously optimistic, and curiosity overrules having bad mental health days or times or moments or years. I almost look at it as like my own illness, because it's hard to have those days where I'm so down that I don't have an experience to pull me back up. And those are the moments that I look back on, and is where I empowered myself, are those moments where it's like, wait, I made the decision to get up and go and do it. Nobody told me to go be a model, to leave. Nobody told me any of that. It all just came from within inside me. And whether we get to be lucky like I was and get to listen to that, Because a lot of us don't. And we don't have the space to. We don't have the creative family that allows that within inside of us. A lot of us have tampered down trauma in our life that doesn't express that. So I feel so grateful. And I just hope that people, no matter what we're dealing with, can look back at experiences of their own life and find those moments where it wasn't something else that drove them, and that they can find it, that came from within them. And if they can just take and keep a little bit of those moments, like wear them as a necklace or put them in our pockets, like our little stones, but really just finding the time every day to go back to those moments and just honor those spaces, because they probably weren't honored at the time they were happening.
Sure.
And nobody knows about them except you.
Yeah.
And so if you can just take a tiny bit of your 24 hours we're given in a day to go back and say, I remember that person, and dang it, look what they did. And, you know, maybe on some of our worst days of just remembering something really small that we accomplished on our own. Even if the accomplishment is thinking about something that's better, if we're having a bad moment, like those happen all the time.
Right.
That's how I get out of them. I always look forward to knowing how other people get out of them too. Because I'm curious, like, what do other people do? How do other people handle
that
it?
resiliency essence too of just these life experiences that pile on top of each other. And I appreciate you saying, like, looking back at them to just see what were the lessons, what were the gifts, what did we learn, what were the challenges. But having that insight and that intuitive guidance, I would say, like for you, is really incredible as a younger human to just tap into that for yourself.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of people about myself, and I'm extremely blessed. You know, I'm just very grounded for whatever reason. You know, I don't know if it was either just letting go very early because people told me this world was going to be very hard. Nobody really like put any sugar and sweetness on it too much when I was little. So maybe some of that grit of punk rock really held strong within me. And my family's still very creative and musical and gritty. You know, my family still goes up against the grain of what looks normal. So maybe some of that also, it's okay to not look normal, and more acceptance of that. Because what the heck is normal? Like, I never got a book that explained that to me. What is normal? That your parents go to work, that they love you, that like you have clothes on your back and food on your plate. Is that normal?
Right.
Actually, no, that's very unnormal today. Like, I have two parents still together, like in the relationship. That's in my world of how old I am. Like, that's still rare. And I meet so many young people today who are like, that my husband and myself are the longest married people they know. It's like, wow. Right on. 20 plus years with my partner. I'm doing okay, you know? So it's hard, but even though our lives don't always match up to what other people's lives look like, not judging what my life looks like compared to somebody else, definitely brings a lot of bigger mind shift lessons to allow more space to witness people and to see them and to learn about where they and what they believe in, or how they even came to thinking the way they do. I think some of those curiosity moments have helped me to get where I'm at, and those are what also inspire me. It isn't always my story that I have to lean back on. It's knowing what other people have gone through and persevered with. It seems like a lot of things become recycled in our thoughts or our time of living, and we're definitely going through some challenging times. So I think these are moments where we get to lean on each other in sparse times of really thinking that it's exciting right now, where it might not for some people.
Right. Staying inspired in these really challenging times.
Yeah. How do we stay inspired in challenging times? How do we reach out and ask for, like, hey, I need a little help? Sometimes it's really hard for people. The influence of social media, you know, we all love it. And it's like, it's a careful one to be around, of not overindulging. It's the same in, any kind of substance abuse. In times that don't seem so uplifting, it seems like reaching out and sharing more of the inspiration we do all carry within ourselves is so important, to connect that with each other and the next generation of people. My daughter has volunteered at Kristen's camps in the past, and it's been really great because, she didn't know what to expect. And I was just talking to her before I came on your podcast today, and she said, "Oh my gosh, that was one of the greatest things I ever did in my life." And so, yeah, and it's just like hearing her story of how she's connected to other girls, or how she's connected to other people who are dealing with gender issues, and her openness. And she said, "I'm going to come join one of Kristen's camps again this year." So
great.
I hope she comes. I welcome you to interview her as well, because I think the younger voices who have been through your camps and how Kristen has inspired them is also inspiring. So I look forward to
attention.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing some of those voices, because sharing our inspiration is great. Hearing it come back to us, how we've inspired somebody, those stories are just unbelievable. And I bet the people who are out there who've been inspired by what you do have some amazing things to share.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's been an intention to reach out to some former campers, or even to the teen volunteers that were, 18, 19, 20-year-olds old that were helping out, and just, but it's definitely, I've run into obviously folks in the community, 10 plus years later, and it's like, I still remember your camp, and thanks for empowering me, help me get through high school and college and all these things. And I'm always like, can I get a testimonial for that?
Yeah, my daughter, she says it today. She's like, "Oh, I didn't know that time of volunteering for her high school moment, right, that you have to do to graduate high school. There was Kristen, like, hey, you can come to my cool thing." So she felt like she had a purpose in her volunteer hours. Like, learning to be a young volunteer is also like, how do we do that? How do we give? How do we feel good about that? And then when we do go and do it, it's quite amazing. So I recommend giving where we can, because it really brings us up in the way we feel and connect to spirit and to be in this world. So giving is such a wonderful thing, and it's affordable, at least most of the time.
Well, and I think it's way needed right now. It's like, how can we get for our communities? That's the reason why I'm doing this podcast, is to get this educational and inspirational information out there and letting other people hear these really empowering conversations.
Yeah, I didn't know I was a poor kid growing up, because I had parents who were super creative. I knew I was poor when I talked to other people in my peer group. Is how I found out. We all learn those kinds of lessons along life, and how we persevered even as young people. Did it traumatize us? Or was it something that helped me gain a foothold and is a part of my foundation now?
Yeah.
How often we get space to look at those moments, the more we can look at them, the better we can pull apart, if we do have trauma, how to heal that, how to give those parts of us hugs and lots of love, because they're in the past and we cannot change that, but we can change what is now. And so I think if we all just look at like a big portion of our time of being in youth, it's really hard. My youth was super cool, and a very, very unique group of people who empowered me to go for it and to dig deep. And when I dug deep multiple times, I ended up at a college that was its motto, where at the Evergreen State College, they digging deep. And I didn't know that until I enrolled there. And so it was one of those things that I was kind of like, okay, probably in the right place, because it was one of those things of like, oh, right, school is a place where you have to figure out how to handle not just learning, which takes a lot, but how to handle all of the other things that come with it. So
responsibilities, but great opportunities.
Yeah, they open doors, and it's a lot of hard work.
Well, thanks for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. And you kind of covered my first 3 questions and your sharing. So we're going to move on to what does my body, my power mean to you?
Well, because I'm a little older of a person now. Had you asked me when I was 20, it would mean something maybe different. But today, I was thinking about that question and was like, it really means that nobody gets to tell me what to do. That's what it means for me.
And embracing that punk side self.
Yeah, it still shines through of like, it's my body and my power is really mine. I go back to that, like I'm an educational lifelong student. I love learning. So really my power is being able to learn, and being able to continue to drink up that creativity of this world, and having a body to be able to have that power is really fun. So I kind of just like that. I love your motto of it because it can mean so many different things to people. And for me, it's really just like I'm inspired by myself. I'm inspired by others. And yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. And what does radical self-acceptance mean to you, and how has it played a role in your journey?
Yeah, that was a harder one. When I read that, you gave me the prompt questions. Thank you.
Yes.
I've used the term radical, like moderation in things when I had clients who were having massive like food addiction problems or trauma that they were getting through in ways. And the word radical is great. It resonates well with me. I guess for me, it's just like really, if you're going to be radical, you have to an acceptance of accepting all of the flaws we have, as well as all of the beauty that shines out from us. And being okay with that. If the flaws we have, you don't like them, embrace them and you can work on them. If you don't like how people view you or critique you've had about whatever it may be, just say you have to embrace that as much as you embrace the things you love about your hair, your teeth, you this, you that. It has to go both ways. And I think that's really like, if you can radically do that and take your darkest and hardest spaces and give them as much attention as you do the good things.
Yay, that's beautiful. And reflecting on your journey, what is one message or lesson you wish more people understood about the path you've chosen and why it matters?
Your path is your own personal journey. And I think that's what matters, is like, make it yours, because somebody else will have an idea for you, or a way it should be, or what they think you should be, or how you should do it, or what is, and this and that. And sometimes there are systemic paths you have to take to get somewhere, to get XYZ. But still knowing there's always a choice in those if you can see them. It's not always easy. But, that's the hard part, is seeing what isn't easy, what isn't always there.
And is there something you never get asked that you wish someone would ask you?
No.
I know one of my business coaches helped me come up with the questions they're offered. And I thought that was a unique question, but not everybody's answering it.
I mean, people ask me really good questions, and I have this crazy background. So the minute I say I was raised in punk rock, I mean, people was like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Were they straight edge? Were they vegan? And it's like, whoa, they have, some questions naturally bubble up when people are like, you were raised in a warehouse? You were raised what? What? You didn't have this? I was like, yes, it's okay. So I guess maybe sometimes for me is maybe people ask less questions. Or
that's true. There's empowerment within that in and of itself.
Yeah, definitely.
Any final thoughts or inspiration or things else you would like to share with our listeners?
I just say go for it. It's the biggest thing I can say to anybody in this moment, I think, is if there's something that you can accomplish, go for it, because the greatest thing that holds us back is ourselves. And there are obstacles to overcome, and reaching out and finding pathways, whether it's within your community, your network of people. And if you aren't finding those answers, to go beyond. And that's where we can really use, I think, social media as a platform to extend yourself in a healthy way of looking to how to empower yourself and how to move forward with something you're wanting to do. I think that's the greatest thing with social media is being able to connect to somebody that we couldn't have 5 years ago. So if you're wanting to do something or start a project or be creative or look for funding or be a scientist or to do research or start a nonprofit or whatever it is, if you have passion in there, you're only your greatest obstacle, and to just like learn to get out of your way and you start at any moment. And it's baby step, and we're all a work in progress. So there's no like, you'll drive your cart as much as you can, and hopefully when you arrive to the finish line, if you have one, I mean, those are really awesome moments to then have that time of being able to look back and be like, that's when it happened. So go for it, like as much as you can.
Awesome. And so you're applying to medical school?
I'm applying to medical school. I'm currently waiting to hear back from traditional MD programs.
Wonderful.
I've applied to also osteopathic schools because
good for you.
It's my wheelhouse. I love the idea of whole body health and support. I'm a research scientist. I'm the executive director of Phage Biotics Research Foundation, and I work to empower students in the next generation of phage research, which are beneficial bacteria that are selectively targeted to help take out bacterial issues that we're up against. AMR is the coined term that we hear today, or antibiotic resistance. These are issues that will impact our world tenfold. And if we don't have people who are acting on it now, we'll have a life cost of millions of people and billions to trillions of dollars in economic loss. So I am at the forefront of leading a conference that has been happening for the past 50 years as the new executive director. And in August, we launch our first on-the-road tour of the meeting, because our meeting's been held at the Evergreen State College for 50 years. And we have decided to keep it new and fresh and innovative and some more access for students. We're going on the road. So the University of Tennessee, Knoxville will be hosting us this August. We're super excited. We launch our registration this week, and usually brings in about 300 to 500 students nationally in the United States, sometimes upwards of 200 students on the international level, as well as delegates. And as well as delegates, industry. We often have people represented from NIH and the FDA, because phage therapy has the potential to really help combat bacterial issues that we're looking at, where antibiotics are not failing. I don't like the way they say that. They're being their usefulness is diminishing because of overuse. And so the bacterial issues are growing stronger. The antibiotics aren't working as well. So therefore, we have to come up with an alternative way or something to help, because bringing a new antibiotic onto the scene will be in the next 10 years of our life from here. It's very expensive. Science moves slow. So we're looking at ways to help something globally. Africa will be hit the hardest because they are in the most need, the most vulnerable populations, and some of the hardest mind shift to work around. We go back to the AIDS pandemic and epidemics there, the way misinformation happened in Africa with people being able to get antiretroviral drugs, how to take their government seriously, that they care about the people, has taken years and years of work. And now we have new issues that African government moves much slower on. They're very hesitant. They're afraid when they hear virus. So there's a lot of cultural reestablishing language and how to help even countries beyond ourselves right now. So here we go. I'm off to school, hopefully.
Yes.
And if I don't make it to school, I'll hoping to just like become the next greatest executive director of a nonprofit to really move and shake policy. If that doesn't work, I'm still in the game of like, I won't take no for an answer on this one.
There you go.
I didn't take no for an answer ever, really. So
phage is the future medicine, it sounds like.
yeah, phage has a lot of potential. It's currently used in a lot of agricultural products in the United States. It's used safely to treat bacterial issues in places like Belgium. They use it in their hospitals. They use it in the countries of Georgia. Russia's been using this for over 60 years in pharmacy work. Germany, Poland, France, Australian government has just spent billions of dollars to start to onboard. And the US is lagging. Canada is got a whole bunch of awesome things happening with it. So we're hoping the United States is next. And there's a lot of space for young researchers to get on board. And I'm hoping that with just the idea that education isn't too far away for most people. You could be a first generation student. There's access out there. And 4 years sounds like a lot of time, but it could be longer. You know, you can spread school out for 8 years and still work and have a great life. So I just plug my cue for don't give up if you think school is out of reach. There's lots of pathways today. And because we got hit with COVID, and the pathways now for online learning are just unbelievable. And to get really good quality online learning today, we learned a lot from that. And packaging things up today is a lot better with more access. So if you're passionate about learning and wanting to continue science in any way, there's so many opportunities out there. And there's new hopeful opportunities just starting to grow for more women in science too. I can't say that enough, that women in science are some of the best things. And I just look forward to the future of that industry supporting more women. So
wonderful. If folks want to learn more about Phage Biotics, where do they find you?
Oh, they could go to phagebiotics.org and you can look at us. I think we also have phagefound.right-now.org, and those will be shortly merged together. So,
and are you on social media?
I am on social media. I'm on LinkedIn mainly, is where you can get me for my research and my science. I like to connect with people on that platform a lot. I am on IG. Just friend me if you want to hang out with me there.
Great. And is Phage Biotics on Instagram as well?
Phage Biotics is on Instagram, and we're also on Facebook there. We are represented. And there's a couple of board members who are out on LinkedIn for the organization as well.
And we'll make sure to get all your information links below so that folks can find ways to connect with you and learn more about phage therapy and your awesome services you're providing in our amazing world.
Awesome, Kristen. Thank you so
Ria.
much for
really appreciate your time. Yes. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will circle back around maybe another, a few months or 6 months, and just come back and hear what you're doing now and other things that you're providing as services to the community and our world. And many blessings for your application process, and good luck in medical school. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, dear. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Keep empowering.
Woohoo! My body, my power. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on this journey of empowerment and connection on the My Body, My Power podcast. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who inspires you. Together, we're creating a ripple effect of confidence, courage, and light. Until next time, Goddess, keep shining your power.